Welcome to Wizard Tea, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Robyn, and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. We're super excited to be starting Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, and today we're discussing the prologue through chapter 2.
But first, we just want to have like a quick discussion about, why we chose Legendborn, what it'll
How
be
did
like
we
reading
get here?
Legendborn. How did we get here? What it'll be like reading this, doing a close read of this book, and things that we're looking forward to, and things that you can look forward to during this new season of Wizard Team. So, how did we get here? It's because Legendborn is the bomb. And if you haven't read it yet, you tripping. Okay? All right. Period. Everyone, the book dropped. Everyone lost their collective mind. And we're still talking about it. And we've been talking about it. And we will continue to talk about it.
It has been 2 years?
Almost 3.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. I was looking because I realized because we'll finish this book before the end of the year. I'm counting it to my story graph.
I mean, always. I did the Mario one too.
Me too. It took so long. It was like 10
I didn't tell it I didn't tell it when we started. I was like, nope, I'll just say when I end. That's fine.
Wait, I've never done it. Let me
to do that. To do that, I was like, I don't know. I was, instead of searching, I think I scrolled. Oh, no. I was just looking at the read times or whatever. And it was 2 years because I reread last year before Bloodmarked. And so it was 2 years in the middle of that, which, there was a lot going on in the last 3 years. So that didn't feel like 2 years, but
it didn't. I don't honestly, as a publishing time really feels like I do know that we were very spoiled whenever we were into one particular series, and there were times when it came out pretty consistently. And then whenever we had that gap time, everyone is just collectively no, right? And but not nearly as much as George R. Martin,
exactly,
right? So at least you know something's coming over the horizon, with Legendborn and
at least I'm not waiting
Amari.
15 years,
right? They're working on it. They are hard on deadlines right now, trying to get stuff out to us. So I'm totally
4 years.
Yeah, it's not going to be 64 years later, and then we'll be oh, a book drop that we can be happy about.
Exactly. I got to reread the whole series because I don't even remember. No,
I will say, me, I am a mood reader, and I read things when the mood strikes. It's very hard. I think Wizard Team books are the only books that I've been basically assigned, even though I signed them myself, but that I have actually finished. They hate me in the B and C book club because I'd be starting these group reads and be like,
I forgot, or I'm done.
I'm done. I did half or whatever. But and also, me, the way that my brain and short-term memory set up, I don't really care about spoilers. But I was trying to avoid the conversations so that I could, because I knew that I would get to the book. And then I was trying to also be in the conversations because I wanted to be hyped for the book. When I finally got to, and I listened to it, I did it on audiobook. When I finally got into it, I remember vividly on a walk with Luna in a canyon. And I got to one part in Legendborn. And I had to stop, open up Discord and be like, yo,
do you remember what part it is?
Just
we're spoiler heavy now.
Yes.
So you can say
we're spoiler heavy. We're spoiler heavy. When she starts doing that memory walk.
Oh yeah.
I was like, because I don't I was I know this is a good book, but I really do not care about Arthurian legends. I watched Merlin once. And I was like, this is cute, but I like Gwen, and that's it. She was a Black girl, but I didn't care. And so the book, I was like, oh, this is a cute little twist or whatever, but it wasn't I felt I didn't feel like the same urgency as everyone else, right? Like I'm definitely gonna read it. Like we talked to BNC had talked to Tracy Deonn and stuff, and like so like I just like knew that like I would like it, but I wasn't excited for it because I was like I've never
Like,
cared about Arthurian
yeah.
legends. This is me right. Yeah, this is me right now, and everyone's like all the new like Persephone or whatever like Greek stuff. I was like I was not a Greek myth girl. Like Hercules, the Disney movie, and that's it. That's all I got. That's all I can give you. The muses. So when I got to that part, I was like, oh, this is so much bigger than just the Arthurian legend. And this is like a great mashup of like all of these different mythologies and histories and magical, like even like kind of different magical systems that are the same or similar. I don't know. It was just really great. And so I feel like when Bloodmark came out, I was way more hype and way more like, I'm on it. And I think, and I hope that during our like close read, we will be able to like, if you haven't read it before, if you haven't read Bloodmark, which is like, this is a spoiler heavy podcast, y'all. So, you know.
Pause now. I mean, we've already like got the spoiler. Sort of. It wasn't super like.
Yeah. It's not a huge spoiler, but, you know, maybe give you something to look forward to. Unless you're like me and you know that, like, spoilers don't affect your enthusiasm, go do what you got to do. But I'm hoping that in the close read and stuff, like, it will, I think it will, like, show that kind of excitement of, like, how it is kind of, not George R. R. Martin, but it's very epic. Like, it's a very ambitious book for it to be, you know, YA, and there's still the love triangle.
I mean, the scale is limited to, like, the university kind of experience to an extent, and then you get Bloodmarked and you get a little bit more, you get away from the university, but it's still, like, very much, like, the scope of it stays, like, within, like, the region of, like, North Carolina.
And also Bree's perspective, because I think that, like, one of the things, as a writer, when you start getting, like, away from, like, one character's just, like, you know, as the center, it starts to, like, blow, I was gonna say, like, blow shit up, but maybe not as, like, dramatic as that. But it just opens it up and makes it a lot more, like, there's just so many more things you have to bring in, and it can feel like a lot. Whereas, like, because this is very much like Bree's perspective, it all feels like a lot. You know, there's still stuff that even she doesn't know, but it's a little bit more focused because it's like we're just seeing it through her eyes, and it's not like we have to be in all these other places as well.
If you want to talk about Black fantasy epics, there was a book that I held up in our podcast. Your podcasters photos that
we might have to
really hits the spot on that
too much of where we have to
plotting ahead. But I do enjoy that. Like, for me, I think the thing that made Legendborn, I think, because I like, as someone who like was like gifted enough to like actually like read it earlier than a lot of people were able to, and then seeing how everyone kind of responded to it, I had my own impression of the story, and then I saw what the general response was, and the general response was like a lot. I think a lot of the response was not only to the love triangle, even though that got a lot of, I guess, there's a lot of people who are into that. But for me, I think what really got people on was like Tracy's really good at getting you like in the emotional state of like whatever Bree's in, or even just responding on behalf of Bree. Like, you're annoyed like at people because of how they treat Bree. You get like anxious about the situation because like Bree, don't do that. Like, you get like in that, and it gets really like she gets you really well into that. And that's why I think that it like the response that we see for Legendborn is so big, because the emotional connection that you're able to make with Bree, but also the other characters in the story, is just so well done. And that's why it was like a book that I really enjoyed, and I enjoyed seeing everyone else's response to like the situations that happened, and like being like either in similar range of like how I felt about the situation, or being like side eye. What are we doing? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's also a good enough. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, if you're bouncing off her, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it's also like because Bree is definitely like the main focus, and like her point of view is the one that we're following. I think it's also great when you're reading it in community and you get to see how people react to the other characters based on kind of how they feel about Bree or those kinds of things. Like there are some characters that I think are universally beloved, and then like before we started recording here, me and Bayana were talking about Alice and how we had like different reactions to her in the beginning, right? I think we end up in the same place, but like, you know, certain things we have different reactions to. And so I think that's one of the best things about reading in community and as well, but it's also like, I found that to be really fun because I was like, you didn't think he was, oh, you thought, okay, y'all don't feel, you know, and obviously the whole Cellbrick, is that all three of them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is just a never-ending well of opinions.
Listen. There's a reason why Wizard Team has a Tumblr. Plug it in. There's a reason why I was like, we should get on Tumblr. So yeah, I guess going into that so we can actually get into the thing, just a couple things real quick. We mentioned on our social media and all that stuff, like in our trailer, like we are gonna go back to Amari. We're not gonna like, it's not over. There's still 2 more books. So we will eventually get to Amari and the Great Game. For those of y'all who are really excited for us to discuss that. We're gonna have more like bonus episodes, author interviews, like some fun things popping up. Also, again, follow us on social media. We're at Wizard Team Pod on Instagram and Tumblr. We're on Threads just because you can have that if you have an Instagram, but I have not. I don't know. We'll see. Definitely Instagram, and definitely Tumblr because there's so much really cool. Like that's really where like I see a lot of Legendborn fandom stuff. I'm obviously not on TikTok, so like I'm sure there's stuff there too, but like Tumblr has a lot of really cool theories and fan art and like all that kind of stuff. So it's been really fun to kind of like go through and like reblog stuff and you know. So y'all should follow us there if you have those things. And yeah.
Please send us your fan arts that you find.
Yes, please. If you can at Wizard Team Pod, please.
We are collectors of fine arts.
And also just any like general Black fantasy stuff as well. Like I try to share that too. So, you know, but since we're discussing Legendborn specifically, it's definitely gonna be like Legendborn blood marked heavy. So anything
also,
please.
A thing I love about Tumblr too, like the headcanons that run rampant. So if you see anything really cool there, or what I guess it's like a flash fic, really, when they just be like posting scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Like I follow there's like incorrect Legendborn quotes. Like we follow them and they're like super funny. So yeah, there's lots of stuff.
Also, just so y'all know, in listener land, I'm gonna do my best to cut it out, but your girl Loon done fucked up. And she's hurt. So we might be getting a lot more Luna interruptions because she's very vocal about being confined. We'll try her best. I don't know if you can hear her right now. We will be hearing a lot from her because she can't go nowhere.
She has a lot of opinions.
Open the door.
The opinions are mostly about not being able to go outside, but yeah, you know, she might have some thoughts about Bree too.
Right.
Hey.
I mean, you know, there are moments where she might empathize with what Bree's going through, and we just want to hear about it, you know?
Right. She's like, you know, like back when I was locked up. When I hurt myself.
She got access to my little half backyard. She can't go nowhere. She can go outside, touch the wall, turn around, come back.
Mm-hmm. but maybe that'll.
She just needs to touch grass, you know?
Yeah, fresh air.
You know? Well, I gotta actually figure out how to grow grass. Just she can touch dirt. She can touch dirt and some weeds. Prologue. So the police officer's body goes blurry, then sharpens again. I don't stare at him directly. I can't really focus on one thing in this room, but when I do look, his face shimmers. Nothing about I'm not gonna read line by line. Nothing about him feels real. I don't think about that though. I can't. Besides, everything looks otherworldly when you've been crying for 3 hours straight. The police officer and nurse brought me and my father to a tiny mint green room, and they sit on the other side of the table and are explaining the situation to us. These people don't feel real, but neither does the situation they keep explaining. I don't cry for my mother's death or for myself. I cry because the strangers in the hospital, the nurse, the doctor, the police officer don't know my mother, and yet they were closest to her when she died. And when your people die, you have to listen to strangers speak your nightmare into existence. So they found her mother on Route 70.
I just want to say, like,
around 8 p.m.
Like, bars, first of all. Like, when I was rereading, I was just like, no, this is a really, like, punchy way. Whoa. This is a really, like, punchy way to start the book, but I also appreciate that it, like, introduces magic, but not in a way that you would, like, it's very easy to miss because Bree is not in that, like, mindset, and it's, like, it can easily, you know, things already don't feel real to her right now, and so it can very easily be written off as, like, either, you know, she's been crying for 3 hours, she's, like, not in the right headspace, right? So I could be hallucinating, I could be, you know what I mean? It could be nothing. And also, if it is something, I ain't got time for this. It's like the alien. They keep talking about the aliens, or whatever. That's what it feels like. It's like that ain't got nothing to do with me. Like I can't even. Like,
but at the same time, with the aliens, it's also like we know, like we know we're not the only life forms in our freaking galaxy. Like we know that. So like tell me what the aliens want. If the aliens are trying to pay my bills, if the aliens are trying to get y'all out of here, that's what I want to know.
Yeah.
If they're trying to get y'all out of here, let me know that. For the most part, I only have time to get through the day, and that is not going to help me get through the day. Unless they will help me get through the day, then we're good.
I saw this amazing TikTok that was like, this is how I deal with like shocking big news stories. Do I still have to go to work tomorrow? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's a diagram. It's like
a diagram. If no, I don't have to go to work tomorrow. Do I still have to pay rent at the end of the month? It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I don't have to pay rent. Okay, it matters.
Right.
And that's where we're at. And that's where Bree is at. Like, is my mama gone? I don't care about the sugar.
But also, I want to note for the bars portion that it's very clear that, because like, as a writer experience, you can tell when someone's kind of dwelled on something for a while, and then they've been able to articulate it because they've dwelled on it for a long time. And knowing that Tracy Deonn went through her own bouts of grief with her own life, and you can tell how that kind of like inspired how she's able to write so well about this experience and like articulate it in like, again, bars. Is really like, it's very clear like how she's been able to come to this place because of her experience. But also it's interesting, I think, thoughtful because of like if she's anything like how I am when I do try to write, I'm really good at like going back to the beginning and like editing the crap out until it's nice, it's clean, it's perfect. And then the other stuff kind of like, I'll write it, sure. But the first one keeps getting looked at over and over again. So I keep changing it up until it just like has this nice kind of feel to it. So I just like hearing, seeing things written in a way that I can understand the writing process. Like, oh, you really sat there and did that. Like, I love like appreciating like that component of writing, and it's really easy to see it there.
I will say, we're not through the prologue yet, but this entire prologue, like the grief, like really like is well framed. It just like seeps through the pages to the point that when I started my reread, I was like, this didn't happen here. I was like, oh, did I mess, like, I was reading the arc and I was like, oh, did they change the order of this? Because it really does give me the, like, first 15 minutes of Up where you're just like, oh, well, how am I supposed to go on? It's over now. Like, it's so, I'm sad, I'm broken. But, yeah, I think that she does a really good job of, like you said, like articulating and describing like what that is. And like, I also love that this is also our first introduction to the magic, because listen, I don't even have to cry for 3 hours. I got an astigmatism. Everything at a certain point shimmers, so nothing, like, it just don't register. Like, I be seeing light beams. I see magic every day. Everything, I be on the freeway, and all of a sudden I just got a light show in the peripheries of my, and so if you're distracted or consumed by something bigger than that, like, it's very easy to, one, our brains love to dismiss things that we don't understand or just ignore them. We're like, I don't understand what that is, so it doesn't exist. But also, like, when you're crying, shit shimmers. Like, water refracts, light refracts off the, So I just really love that, because when we get a little bit further removed from the immediate grief, not that she, your mother passes away. It's not, oh, I'm sad for a day, and now I'm back to, but like the grief does morph and change.
Yeah.
It's easy for her to be like, yeah, and then when she encounters it again, then she can go back and be like, oh shit, like that wasn't a trick of the light or a fluke. Yeah.
It also shows a little bit about her characterization as well, where it's like it's a me problem. It's not a thing I actually observed. It's actually me. I'm the problem that's in this situation.
The thing y'all were talking about too, about the like the TikTok and the like, oh, is it actually like gonna directly affect me? In that moment, in her head, like, oh, she, her mom died. She's not thinking about that. But when it comes up in, she's like, oh, this does have to do with me, or it's about me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But she's saying like it's like my tears. It has like my unending crying has led to this being it's a me problem. Like this is not something I should be considering as something like it's an actual phenomenon that
like
I'm observing.
Outside thing, yeah.
No, this is me. Like I am having a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to read this in its entirety because bars, and then I want to. I listen to these people I don't know use the past tense about my mother, the person who brought me into this world and created my present. They are pretensing my heart, my whole beating, bleeding, torn heart right in front of me. This is a violation. These uniformed strangers carve me open with their words, but they are just doing their jobs. I can't scream at people who are just doing their jobs, can I? I want to. So they are carving. They are past tensing, they are past tensing her whole heart. Tracy, you better write. Damn.
Also, like, just breaking our hearts immediately. I think that's the other thing about this book is from jump, like, oh, this is gonna hurt me.
Yeah,
which I love personally. Like,
I'm reading this like I don't think I want to do this, and Bayana's reading it like, let's go, and Portia's like,
do it. Let's
feel like hard feelings. How do you actually make an impact on someone who's unfeeling? Make all it angsty, and then you're like, oh crap, it's all angsty. This is interesting. Nothing feels right. Everything feels wrong. Love it.
And when you're someone who is all feeling, who is nothing but feeling in a meat suit, you're like,
I don't need this. I don't need more of this.
But I just don't want to. Why am I crying on page 2? It's like people who used to watch This Is Us, and I was like, the Twitter emoji is a box of tissues. I don't have time.
It's a fun time. It's a great time.
I've never watched that show because of the Twitter emoji. I've seen what I need to see immediately now.
The black couple is everything. That's just
I've heard. That's what I hear. I love that for them. My father asked questions, signs his name, blinks and nods, and I wonder how he's functioning. My mother's life has stopped everything and everyone stopped living too. So she was crushed. After a hit and run, and she was alone until some nice, probably frightened Samaritan saw her overturned car on the side of the road. And then she thinks about the fight that she had with her mother last night in anger. A night when her best friend Alice and her sitting together in the basement of her parents' split-level home decided UNC Chapel Hill's early college program was our dream. Bright high school students can earn college credit at Carolina over the course of 2 years, experience life in the dorms, and become independent. That's what the brochure said. For Alice and me, early college was 2 minority girls ticket out of a small town in rural North Carolina. For us, it meant bigger ideas and classrooms and adventure. If they could get into EC, they could leave Bentonville High, move to a university dorm 4 hours away from home and away from parents who held us so tight that sometimes we couldn't breathe. A decade before I was born, my mother was an undergraduate at Carolina, a burgeoning scientist. Our letters came yesterday. Alice's parents knew why she was applying. They beamed like they were the ones who'd been accepted. And I knew for me it wouldn't go that way. I'd applied behind my mother's back, certain that once I got in, once I had the letter, she'd let go of her need to keep me close. I handed her the letter on blue and white Carolina stationery, grinned like it was a trophy. I'd never seen her so angry. My brain doesn't accept where my body... Oh.
I was going to say, I like how, like, this is an info dump, sort of, and it's like, it's giving us this backstory, it's giving us what we need to know for, like, you know, why she's 16 in college in the next chapter, but it doesn't, like, take away from what she's going through and through the moment, right? You can still kind of feel the guilt that she's feeling through it, but at the same time, it's a very, like, straightforward, like, we applied to early college, Alice's parents want her to go, my mom doesn't, you know what I mean?
And the idea of, like, wanting to, like, I think Bree's,
like, it's a very
impulse and tendency to want to get away and to kind of, like, distance as a form of, like, dealing, which we see come full circle with how she's dealing with her mother's death, too, like, to distance herself, to close herself off, to just escape as a form of, you know. A very smart therapist once told me that avoidance works. She said other stuff, but I stopped listening. I avoided the rest of that.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to quote you for that, actually, on my podcast. Thank you. On, like, 2 things.
Something about it only works for so long, and you have to deal with blah, 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 whatever.
What I got from that was the thesis statement that avoidance works. 2 words.
I heard, keep doing what you're doing. That's what I heard.
I just, 2 things. One was that I feel like what Bree is showing here with her grief and the guilt of grief is what a lot of people go through, especially whenever there's stuff like, you know, like even if you didn't leave off, or like your last thing with her conversation with that person wasn't bad, you can't help but to think about all the things that you considered you had available to you where that person's still alive, and the things that you meant to do with that person while they were alive, thinking you still had time with them, and then you no longer have that time to do those things, make up with them, whatever it is you were planning to do. And so there's a lot of, like, leftover grief for the person who's living on when that person is no longer there. And so I really love that. That's an easy, like, connection point if you've ever gone through a loss like that, to Bree, and you can really empathize and, like, sit with her in this situation in that way. And then my other thought was about how much I am very, I guess, like, semi-proud of, like, how well I am able to retain stuff, even though I've run through books all the time. And there's some things about this story that I was like, oh crap, I did not retain that Bree's mom was a scientist, or we're gonna get there, but like that, or that Alice's major was this, but she had plans to do this. Like, I remember this part, but not that part. And I'm like, oh crap, like I didn't retain some of these things that are like, they're like integral to the characters to an extent, but also like they just don't come up enough again or whatever, that you don't really like just like stick in her head.
In your brain, yeah.
Yeah. So that was something that was like, Jesus, what kind of scientist was her mother training to be? What did she end up doing in the small town then if she's a scientist?
Yeah.
Like, all that kind of stuff happened.
And I know she mentions too, it might be in the next chapter, like different plants and stuff and how her mom was like, you know, into that. So it's like sort of a hint, like maybe it was like, you know, plant science, botany, biology, something like that. But also it's a hint into like rootcraft and stuff. For when that comes up.
I mean, I automatically went, because again, spoiler heavy. I automatically was thinking like, oh, root work ties and like all that stuff too.
Yeah, I was thinking biology and blood, and I also didn't retain that. But I, unlike you, am never shocked that I don't retain things, because I don't retain shit.
Well, I mean, I knew when I reread this before Bloodmark, so I have read it like in the last year, maybe a little less than that or whatever. But because I knew, I was like, there's just going to be certain things. It's been long enough that I'm not going to know. And I want Bloodmark to hit as hard as possible. So I'm like, I need to re-up the knowledge.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So last night, she roared about trust and safety and not rushing to grow up. I screamed about unfairness, about what I earned, and how I needed to get away from dirt roads. This morning, I was still fuming when I woke up. In bed, I made a silent declaration not to speak to her all day. That declaration had felt good. Today, a nothing normal Tuesday, except that for me, it carried the stubborn undercurrent of we'll talk later. Tonight, she drove away from work at the end of the day, then a car. We'll talk later is not the same as we'll never talk again. The twine from February closes tight around me like I will never take another breath. But somehow the police officer is still talking, shimmering and shining. The air around him looks alive, like he's drenched in magic. But when your entire world is shattering, a little bit of magic is nothing. That's the prologue. This could be hyperbole. Probably is. I can't think of another prologue. Huh?
I think I only speak in hyperbole half of my life. Like that's all I speak.
Yeah. Well, it's, because the hyperbole for me in the moment is real. Like, I think that's one of the best prologues that I've ever read. Like, written wise, like in terms of like just the prose.
Mm-hmm.
The prose.
Yeah.
It just like really like sticks with you. It really like conveys emotion very well, and it also, like you said, like there is info dumps of like, this is who we are, this is where we are, this is what's going on, but like does so in a way that like also conveys a lot about Bree's inner workings and like how not only her emotions at the time, but how she is processing and how she processes information. It's all bad information at this point, but like, I just think it does a really, like, I feel like after reading that, not only do I know the setting and where we're at and what, kind of like, I know there's going to be magic. I know that there's some sort of mystery because why is the police officer magic? And that police officer telling the story, like, breaking the news to this main character, obviously there's some sort of connection to why that is happening. So I feel like I understand all of that, but I also now understand Bree and how she takes in this kind of bad information, how she holds these, how she feels guilt, how she holds that guilt. And you can hear the anger, like when she says like that is a violation, mm-hmm. and like these people are breaking my heart, and like it goes on in the first chapter when she talking about how people, like what people want from her when they're trying to give condolences. It is not a like, I feel like sometimes when I'll be like, oh, people want to hear I'm fine. I feel like that's a sense of like, yeah, people don't want to deal with the bad stuff, but they also want to just skip to, or they want the comfort of knowing that you'll be okay, and that if something like this ever happened to them, they'll be okay. That's how, like, I always have, like, I've always understood the like I'm fine thing. Like, yes, it's fake and it's false, but it comes from like a kind of an optimistic lens. And with Bree, she's like, they want to congratulate themselves and they want me to self-flagellate all over them. And then, you know, like it's much more like not just pessimistic, but
angry.
Like angry, you know? And so, and like her anger has to be pointed outward. Not that she's not also angry with herself. You can see that with the, like, you know, the things that I said to her and we'll never talk again, you know, and like how she's kind of lamenting that she felt good about the decision that she wasn't going to talk to her mom all day. So there is anger with herself as well, but like there's also this like anger that she pushes at everyone else.
Yeah, but also, I mean, like, and I guess we'll get into it too just in a second, but like she it's at everyone else, but she also holds it in. It's like both at the same time, you know what I mean? Like she's not, like, I think she is suppressing it in that she's not expressing it outwardly because she is trying to seem fine and like she's good and like she doesn't, you know what I mean? Like hasn't changed. But it's still, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's still held inside.
Like primarily, she's just pissed about the circumstances, like of it all. Like the fact that it happened, the fact that like no one was there with her, no one knew it was coming. It wasn't like it was a death that like she was like she was sick and she knew it was coming. Like it was just, and then it happened on the same day that they were going through an argument, and like just the circumstances around it all, I think is what she's primarily pissed about.
Yeah. And it's like it's and we will talk about it like this episode, but again, spoiler heavy. At this point, there's no one to really direct it towards. So it is kind of at everyone, at herself, whatever. At the point that she thinks, oh, somebody is responsible, then that becomes more of like, okay, I'm focused on that. Like, it becomes more focused. It like gives her something to do, which is like, you know, it's just, it kind of shifts the way that she expresses her anger, but also it's like, okay, it's not just this more amorphous thing that like is just, you know, I'm just feeling. It's like, no, I can blame somebody for it, which is like a different thing, I guess.
Yeah, I don't mean that like,
yeah,
I don't think that the way that she's processing is wrong. I don't think there is a right or wrong way to process. It's just that like her processing comes out as anger. But yeah, and I think that like just getting all of that, the prologue is what, it's 4 pages? 3 pages? It's 3 pages. Like, she put her foot in that.
She kept going back and being like, no, I can make this tighter. I can make this tighter.
Yeah. It's so tight.
Yeah. And there's so much like discourse around prologues and like when they're necessary and when they aren't and do they work and whatever. But like this one is like, no, you 100% needed this.
This prologue it does exactly what a prologue mission is. It sets you up to be able to understand what you will be going through at least the beginning of the story. Like, you know, this is the mind space this character, the main character is, and you know what she's gonna be going through because the early college program, like, you know, that's what her setting, so she's gonna be doing for the next couple of months. You get even a little bit about by her not talking about her father's reaction to her going to early college and spending more time on the anger that her mother had. You get a little bit about like how she has a different relationship with her father than she does with her mother in this, right? So like there's a good chunk of like just like, again, like you said, like setting it up, like she like how we just like know better. But I feel like the prologue like is where you're supposed to get all that, and the mission is accomplished on that. Like, you checked all the boxes off for that.
Yeah.
I also think
yeah.
I also think that it does a really good job too of like I said, like when you go back, you're like, oh, I think the argument from her mother of like being in a rush to grow up and doing things kind of behind the back and stuff, like on its face is a valid argument, right? But then when you learn more, you're like, oh, she understands the dangers and she's trying to like she's trying to keep Bree close, not just because she's overprotective mom and blah, 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 but she knows exactly what's happening at Carolina and Chapel Hill. And she's not trying to, like, rush that process. And also, she knows at a certain point she's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Because
But at the same time, she, like, it's interesting. Like, here we are. Like, this is me conspiracy boarding. But isn't it interesting that she dies right as her daughter is going to the school that she knows all this crap is going to, so she doesn't have enough time to forewarn her about anything, like even like, or keep her from going in the first place. Like, isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting that like
part of the curse thing?
Okay,
like,
but the timing is sus. And at the same time, like I feel like the arguments that like she knows her daughter, and I feel like the main thing that's coming here is that she did not have enough time to appeal to Bree's sense of whatever she could appeal to in this moment to talk to her about it. She spends more time talking about you're too young, which is not, you know your daughter. That's not gonna be an appealing argument. So this sounds like it's just her like her flash reaction and not an actually like if she had more time to come together, think about it, like, okay, let me give her as much information as I can give her without giving her too much, while also being able to be effective and communicating with her. Maybe I'll tell her to apply to another school instead. I have to think a different, like, you know what I mean? Like, do a different way about it. And so it's just really interesting to me, the timing of it all, and where that leaves Bree underprepared. And I'm as an adventurous girl, like as a teenager, was very like timid and not into adventure in like the outward way, but like I was always down for a book about adventure or to go on a trip or something. Like college was the first time I was able to actually do the big adventure, as it is for a lot of people, I'm sure. And something really appealed to me in that discussion, even though like it's like, I guess this is my 30-something-year-old brain thinking about this, but I would not have been prepared to go to a college setting like for law, like be there 2 years before I was 18. Like that would not have been cute for me.
No,
I wasn't prepared when I was 18, and I think that like
I mean I went to school right up where I lived, literally because I was like, and I like I wasn't even 18. I was like, I don't think I'm ready for that.
I hear about people I know.
Home.
Yeah, literally, like the
That's
first
where
like
I'm going.
The first month, I'd be like, you know what? I'm tired of being in the dorm. I'm ready, y'all. I'm going home.
For Bree, first off, you're 16, you know, but I think for her, she does get that like, because she's saying without being held so tight that we can't breathe, and also like I'm sick of dirt roads. There is something. I feel like people are talking about this a little bit more now about being a minority in a small town or in a suburb. Even the fact that like I love her friendship with Alice, but the fact that they are best friends and they've been best friends, a lot of that is probably because they are othered and they are the only ones. It's funny to me too, because like this is conjecture. I never lived in Carolina or in the South in general, but I also like I feel like there are plenty of rural towns in Carolina where you wouldn't be the only person. Like,
oh no, there's a lot of Black folk in rural spaces. Like like I grew up in a small town, mind you. I didn't grow up like I went to the country. Like I saw the country weekly because my church was out in the country. But like I didn't grow up in the country. So but knowing the communities of people that I did interact with that lived in the country, there are Black people like have like, their own like farms next to each other. Like it's a whole Black community within the rural space. So there's plenty of those all throughout the South and in the North and stuff too.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like there are places. I mean, like even like when I lived in Oakland or the Bay versus coming down here, I think the Black population of San Diego is like 2%. Same with like San Francisco, right? I think the Black population is at like 2. It might even be lower than that now.
Yeah,
it keeps dropping.
It was
But
higher
in but in San Francisco, you can go to, well, Oakland's dropping too, but like you could go to Oakland, you could go to Vallejo, you could go, and it's not like you said, like you could go to the country or you could go to those spots, right, where you do see people. In San Diego, you got to go to LA, which is 2 hours away. There's not like the suburb or the rural enclave of like people of color. We just aren't this far south. There are plenty of like brown people, which gives you the, something. There's some color, but it's not the same, right? And so for Bree and I think for Alice, it's like there's a bit of the like I want to be independent, or I'm being held too tight, or like my parents are too overprotective, which is born out of necessity of where they're at and being the only minorities where they are. But like you said, give her mom a little bit more time, and she could be like, well, let's sign you up for a camp in this, let's go
anywhere, but
let's avoid that campus at all costs. Like, let's just not. But
we're here.
Let's look at South Carolina. Let's look somewhere not there. Just not there. Yeah.
So it's interesting, but then again, plot. Where we always end up.
I mean, but it's also to be considered of like Bree's headspace. That's a thing she might be mulling over too. Like, I think part of her anger reaction, there's a lot of components of that, but one of the parts of the anger reaction is that like she's like she was happy to give her mother, she's proud to give her mother this letter since she got accepted to this early college program at her mother's alma mater, and that's why she was so taken aback by her mother's anger at it, because it's like, I'm trying to follow in your footsteps and you're getting angry at me. So it's like I feel like there's like this whole discussion about like what could have been like had her mother had some more like input. I think that's part of her like ongoing grief and like consideration is like, why was she angry? What was wrong? Like, what is going on, right? And what could have happened if we could have just talked it out? Like, what was happening? Why was she this way? And I can see that being part of her ongoing. I guess that's part of grief, is always wondering like what could have been.
The what if and what, yeah. And I do think because she said like Alice was upfront with her parents the whole way through, and I think as kids we think that we know our parents, and we do, but there is a lot of like reasonings behind what we are seeing or what we understand about our parents that we don't fully understand because we're kids.
But also,
right?
we know what they show us. Like, they show us the parenting part of themselves and maybe some other parts they don't know they're showing us. But we don't know. They show other people other things, like how they are in romantic relationships. We don't know that really. We know what we see of it, but we don't actually know. Yeah.
And I think for Bree, for her, it was like, if I just say I want to go to this early, if I do what Alice did and talk about it early, the overprotectiveness is going to just override everything. But if she sees the acceptance letter, she sees that, like, I can do this, then we'll have a chance to have the conversation and she'll be proud of me. She'll, all of these things. She doesn't understand that the overprotectiveness is not born
comes from,
Yeah, like, it's not just like, oh, you're my baby.
It's like, no, there's
there are some valid reasons we need to be scared about a lot of things. Here on Wizard Team, it's no surprise that we love books. We also love supporting the independent bookstores.
With our bookshop affiliate link, you can not only get all the books on your TBR, but you can support indie bookstores and B&C at the same time.
And if you're not sure what you want, that ain't no problem. Check out our The Plot Thickens list full of recommendations from none other than Porshèa herself.
Head to www.bookshop.org/shop/BlackNerdsCreate to treat your shelves.
Treat your shelves.
Oh, that's nice. That's clever.
Oh my goodness.
That's clever.
We are now in chapter 1, which is 3 months after the prologue. I don't know why, and like, we don't have to get that deep into it. Very sorry for this, but I feel like whenever I see, like, I turn a page and it says like X amount of time later, it like reminds me of Endgame, and the title card where they're like 5, and then they said years, and everybody like groans in distress. So it's just a thing in my head. It's very dramatic in my head. But 3 months later, Bree is at early college. She's decided to go, and she's at this party in the quarry where they're doing, and it was funny because I had the thought and then I read it and I was like, okay, cool. They're doing white people shit. They are jumping off. There are a bunch of kids jumping off cliffs into the water for fun. And, you know,
I will say that in Indiana, we had quarries like this. Or they weren't even, they were like limestone quarries. And we did, like, I remember reading this and being like, holy shoot, this is like literally a scene out of my freshman year of college. And so it felt very
no, it definitely gives, like,
especially the part of, like,
that aged
Bree and Alice, like, staring there, looking at the people jump through and being like, you know, like, this is interesting to watch.
Yeah.
I think I did jump, but, like, I definitely went down to the lowest. I wouldn't call it a jump. I was like, where's the lowest thing? I'm going to get in.
I'm going to slip into the
water.
water.
Into the water.
I'm going to get in the water, but I'm not.
I'm a hop.
Cliff diving into the water.
I'll hop. Yeah, I'll even do a little from the side, right on the edge.
And then when I figured out what the water was, which is really, in those quarries, like, it's just
fresh water.
Rainwater. It's not, it's not, like, flowing into anything. Like, so you think about, like, lakes and stuff like that, like, lakes can be gross or whatever, but the water is moving, and so it's
not
kind
a
of
river.
Cleaning itself
not,
a little
like,
bit. It's not
connected to a bigger waterway.
Yeah. There's no outlet. There's no flow. It's not connected to anything.
Cool.
It's really disgusting, and so it is. It's a cesspool, and I remember in the quarry that I was in, or I went to, and people were like, "Oh yeah, someone drew through." I don't, you don't know if it's like a urban legend or if it's really true or whatever. So it was like someone crashed their car. There's a car underneath there. Like, oh, well, that's disgusting. Like, then there's like
I wouldn't
oil and shit. Like, you know. So I say all that to say, I found it very relatable, and like, I was like, "Oh yeah, no, this is some college nonsense. I love it."
It 100% sounded like, it definitely sounded like some true stuff. Like, I 100% see a college student be like, "Let's go." So Bree and Alice are watching on the side. I think more outwardly, Bree is kind of with Alice in the like, okay, like, y'all are doing this, but she's also feeling this like urge to also jump. Which I think we'll get into a little bit later, but I'll just mention it now, but we'll get into it deeper later. But like this, like before and after Bree that she kind of talks about in terms of like before her mom died and after, and how she feels a lot different. We talk a lot about like the anger that she's feeling already, but it's like, it's kind of like this pressure building up in her, and she just feels like she needs some kind of outlet and some way to get it out. And I think in this moment, part of her is like drawn to something that's like super reckless.
What is life if people can just die on you? No warning. So why be precious about it? Go on and do the dangerous thing.
But I also think, it reminds me, and I hate to say this because, like, the quality is not the same, but when, what is it Breaking, whatever that second Twilight
Breaking
book
Dawn.
is. Yeah. New Moon, as she's...
New Moon?
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
But it reminds me of that.
I was trying so hard not to go there,
but
it's in there.
Get the sense that Bree is very numbed and has numbed herself, and so she's also trying to feel something, even if I do this dumb thing, and like she's very aware that it's dumb. Mm-hmm. Like she's not.
Yeah,
because at least
she's
I
both
can feel
judging
something
it
that's not
and she's
pain,
like,
and not that
what's
like
going on over there.
It's just like her grief is all consuming, and so I think she's looking for something to get her mind away from the grief, and like terrifying, reckless, death-defying stunts might be the thing, I think that's really, I don't know, I do think that like Tracy really writes grief very well, especially in these early chapters, and I think that's what I got from Bree's thinking about possibly maybe doing this.
It's funny that y'all got Twilight from this. I do remember that scene, but for me, I got like the Dauntless from the Divergent series. Yeah, because they also did some jumping off of high things a lot, whatever too.
Yeah,
and
that's true too.
And I feel like a lot of their motivations was a level of nihilism, of like just like F it, like for a lot of different reasons, like the world that they were in, their own personal things that had them like wanting to get a relief. Yeah, it's the grief, but I also feel like it's like tied to just like trying to have some level of like I guess like self medication or meditation in this way, like it's a meditative kind of thing to be able to like jump off and not have to think for however many minutes or seconds you're floating through the air and then crashing into the water. That's what I got from it mostly, and it's just funny to me that like we are referring to these other teen series that are also very popular when they came out.
Yeah. Yeah. So we also get more and see of like how Bree is dealing with both the world and people in a different way than she would have post her mom's death. And I think that like the way that it's kind of depicted is interesting considering we don't actually meet Bree until after her mom dies, I guess. You know what I mean? Like there's again, we like talk about before Bree and after Bree, and we can kind of see the ways that like how she's feeling and how she's holding it in, how she's trying not to seem different especially to her best friend Alice, and to her father, who's like checking in on her and stuff, and she's just trying her best to like, and I don't even know if it's completely like to pretend like she's the same so much as it's just to pretend that she's okay, and like not wanting to show like
I feel like
the full
it's
extent
interesting
of
you're
how
saying that
she's
like
changed, I guess.
She's talking about her pre-her, and we didn't get to meet pre-her, so it's interesting in her perspective what she thinks her before self was. And then as I mentioned those other as talking about these other popular teen series, I'm thinking about how they're all on this universal kind of truth of like how being a teenager is this strange state of life where you are starting to be more aware of the level of your impending proximity to like adulthood, and how much more control you're expected to have over your life in that point. And as you're trying to get there, you're also trying to take up more control over your life at the same time. And so I feel like part of her before self and after self is also related to her like having the ability to be able to say like, I can control myself, I can be on this campus with all these other young adults and be okay, like I can maintain the semblance of normalcy to an extent because I can control myself even though I'm going through this like deeply tragic moment right now.
We should say, because this is a spoiler heavy podcast, I really love, again, I think we talked about it with the prologue in how like you see Bree's grief and it's kind of obviously taken like precedence over like her brain and like what she's thinking about in the like present, but then there's also this like it's not even really an undercurrent. It's like there are these signs of magic happening around her and she's just not, both I think because she's grieving, but also like, is that going to be your first thought? You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's weird. Is this magic? Right. But like having like, so we kind of see that a little bit in the prologue, but then also in talking about before and after Bree, and like towards the end of the book, we do find out that like her after Bree is her becoming a scion. It's a way that those two things are interconnected, especially in regards to like her maternal line and the way that like the, you know, that power passes through them. Is like one has to die for the next to get that power, and so it's like inextricably tied to their grief. I just think it's very well done, and I like it's, you know, we don't get to get this deep into it when you're just like reading it on your own, so being able to like read it this time and like really catch it and being able to be like sit with it was really great, honestly. Okay, so yeah, so we meet a couple people. So we meet Alice, obviously. So she's Bree's best friend. It's funny because so Robyn and I were talking before we started recording about how when I first read this book, Alice was not my favorite. And when I reread, I still kind of felt the same way, but by the end I was like, Alice is fine. And then by once I read Bloodmark, I was like, all right, yeah, I'm all for Alice. But the beginning of this, and I think in this chapter, it's not super intense. It's like, you get to a part where they like fight, where I'm just like, I don't know, dear, this isn't gonna work. But also reading it this time, I kind of realized like how similar I am to Alice, and I was like, well, dang, what does that say about?
Which was like the funny part about our conversation about Alice, because she was like, I was remembering how I don't like Alice, and my brain was like, but you and Alice are you're very similar.
And usually I don't have that. Yeah, usually I don't have a thing where like if I recognize that someone's like me, I'm not like, oh, I don't like, you know what I mean? Usually those things don't, at least for me, don't go hand in hand. But I also think for me in this moment, it was like, I definitely recognized, and I think for me, it was like in a regular situation, I would 100% be Alice, right? Like if I'm just here with my homie and we're at this quarry jumping cliff because she decided she wanted to be here and I clearly don't want to be here. And now she over here looking at the quarry, giving eyes to the quarry. Like I'm ready to go home. We're not doing this. You're not jumping in this like cesspool. But I think that, you know, all of the things that Bree is dealing with right now, she's dealing with this grief. She's like, clearly, like, I think Alice can tell that she's not completely okay. I think she's, you know, there's only so much you can do sometimes. And like, you know, she's also a teenager, so may not know exactly how to be there for her friend. And it's not even this chapter. It's a couple, we will get there when we get there. But in a couple of chapters, there's just this moment where I'm like, she was getting on my nerves. That's all. When we get there, we can discuss further, but it was a thing. And so, reading it this time, I'm like, in this particular situation, I'm all with her, you know? I'm like, no, y'all shouldn't be there. And I'll be irritated too.
Yeah. And I think that like, there is these like dueling things. So we were talking about, the amount of grace Alice gives Bree. Because Bree is so clearly grieving in a way that, like, I think most people would be like, is a little self-destructive, I guess. So, you know, there are these things when you love someone and you're thinking, like, I want to let them grieve and I don't want to give them any pressure or feel any pressure about it. But also, I don't want this self-destructive thing that I can see is clearly stemming from their grief to then like have them make a decision that's going to affect them for a long time or be like an irreversible decision. Mm-hmm. But also, I'm not trying to be here, but also as your best friend, I'm not trying to leave you here, especially leave you here while you are going through this grieving. Like, so you can see all of these like kinds of like considerations piling up on Alice, and they thought is like, at what point do you give grace? What does that grace look like? And how much, you know, should we be thinking? And I think for me, I like Alice throughout. I do know the part in which you were speaking about, in which I was like, yeah, you know.
And she's not in this book enough for, like, for when I was reading it the first time around. She wasn't in it enough to, like, completely, like, redeem herself at that time. Like, again, rereading it, I think I felt a different way. But because Bree spends a lot of the time, like, not in her presence because she's, you know, doing subterfuge and all that, it's just, like, it didn't give me, I felt like first time around, I didn't get enough time to, like, actually be around Alice.
I just like that she didn't get around all these white kids and be like, oh, let's go do that too. Like, I'm glad that her common, like, person of color sense was like, oh, we are not about to do that. That is one thing we will not be doing today.
Yeah. And Bree definitely needs someone like that, especially with her current, like, mindset. Obviously, again, we don't really know what Bree was like before her mom died, but she definitely needs somebody who is, so yeah, I think that basically Bree needs somebody like Alice in this, like, situation. So I think that it makes sense for her to be there. Like, she definitely needs somebody to be like, hey, remember yourself and, like, your home training and that.
I love in this instance that Alice is Mufasa and is like, remember who you are.
Remember. Okay, so then moving on, Bree. Well, okay, actually first, so we also meet like a few other folks, like acquaintances of Bree and Alice. So there's Charlotte, who they like used to go to school with, but is a couple years older than them and went to early college before them. So like she's like the reason that they're there. It's like, oh no, we know this person. She invited us to this thing, so we're here. Charlotte has a boyfriend named Evan, who he will turn up again. But we see this moment of Bree having to deal with like the I'm sorry for your losses. Well, first we deal with Evan being mad,
uncouth.
What's the word? Like
without tact. Tactless.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Zero tact. I'm just like,
with the dead mom.
Like, oh,
your
so
mom
you're
died.
With the
like,
dead
God
mother.
damn.
Like, are you for real? Like, are you serious? Like, why would that, of all things, be the first thing that comes out of your head, out of your mouth, really, when you meet a person?
I did appreciate
like,
that it was very clearly, and like the way that it was written too was very clearly like he literally said his thoughts out loud. Because everyone, even his girlfriend, was like,
like, it's like, are you for real?
And then he was like, well, that's what you said. Like, no.
It's like, no, that's probably, one, not how I said it, and also, like, not meant for you to then repeat.
But
like
also,
that.
who
like,
wants to be known as the person whose parent, like, oh, you're the person
who's,
like,
you're dead mom girl.
Like, nobody wants to take that on as their identity. Like, are you for real? Like, yeah, it was wild. But then again, then we see, like, kind of, I think, what does she call it? It's like bingo, like, where it's like all these different like phrases that people are saying that just like, and we talked about it, I think, before the break, like when we were talking about the prologue, about like, to Bree, how they're empty platitudes, like they're said so that the person saying them can feel better about the situation, versus them actually being helpful. And like, seeing that through Bree's kind of perspective and her being really angry about this situation and trying to like navigate it. You know, it's not fair that she has to deal with this in the first place, and so then having to like talk to people about it, and they're asking questions and they are like, you know, saying things that aren't useful. So yeah, so after that immense fuck up by Evan, Bree is like, you know, she decides to kind of like take a moment to herself, and in doing so meets this very like strange dude named Selwyn Kane.
Y'all can't see the cheese on my face, but it is huge.
No, yeah, she immediately...
I gotta say, this is the best meet cute, meet ugly. This is the ugliest meet cute. The cutest meet ugly. I don't know the right way to say it, but like, Selwyn is obviously a very big character, and we'll get to learn more and more about him. This set me up to be Team Sel in a way that, like, when she meets Nick, I was like, I don't understand, but we still have, oh boy, like, where he at? What's going on? But he was also wildly out of pocket. I think I might read too many romance novels, because in real life, in
he's wildly out of pocket from jump. It like escalates. It escalates, but he's definitely like they are immediate. Like he immediately starts insulting her, and so then she's like, so like it's. I like it because it immediately sets up their dynamic. Like it's not like that, and even when they become like, even when their like relationship changes, the dynamic doesn't. If that makes sense. And so, yeah, so there's like immediate bickering. They're not getting along. He then senses something from her, or like thinks that he does. So then on top of that, then he becomes a little like, then he becomes aggressive, I guess, and like demanding. He like grabs her arm, is like asking all these questions, and she's just like, bro, what?
Who are you?
I don't know you. Like, what are we doing?
Like,
here?
not only do I not know you, but why are you touching me? And like, what are you talking? And are you drunk? Like, are you high?
Like,
we're at a part. We're still like kind of at a party-ish thing.
Right.
You're a white man grabbing on me.
Come on.
And
there's so many dynamics.
I just maybe it's so many before, and I know so, but it until he touched her, I was like, oh, everything's. I did not take it as rude, because I'm like, you literally you are a black girl thinking about jumping in the water and darkness by yourself. And this white boy, the white boy is the one who had sense to tell you don't do that. Like
somebody had to say.
Like for me, I was like, girl.
Somebody had to tell her.
If that doesn't make you stop and think about your life choices in that moment, what will? Because I would have been like, oh my, oh no, my mother would never. My grandmama made me. Like my grandmama did not raise me to do this. Like I felt a white asked me if I like told me that I should. He had better sense than I had. Like it's almost like the TikTok sound is like I refuse to be out inwarded. Like I refuse. Like I was out inwarded and I refuse.
That is a really good like. Where's the moment when you were like, oh, my life has gone wrong? Am I in the wrong?
No,
am I the bad
like,
guy? Is when the white boy is like,
so
are
that's
you
the thing,
sure?
It's like it starts off where you're like, nah, yeah. Here's a person with some sense.
Stupid.
Stopped her from doing something that's insanely just stupid.
Ooh.
And
he escalates it in a way that's like, okay, and there goes, so there he go,
weird.
And there he go.
Flips he escalates to some other stuff. We don't know what he's talking about. I do want to just point out that she calls him unsettlingly beautiful, and that he has fangs when he smiles. And I just want to shout out to anime, because I know that Tracy has talked a lot extensively about her influences from anime. Specifically.
I love like it's the animes like they whenever the character's not actually fanged, but they just have a couple of times and whenever they're like acting characteristically like animalistic or like a cat or whatever, that like they just like the animators put that into like that's what I got from that. It's like not that he actually like is walking around with the things hanging in his mouth, but like yeah.
Well, no, like I think he does, but they're not like. Because they eventually grow big. They eventually get bigger.
Yeah, I thought it was like a
thing,
metaphor.
You know? It's like when
for like
again, I read a lot of romance.
Yeah.
Maybe like, and he growled.
Like,
men are not actually growling, right? They're just like, you know, or like whatever, but they're not actually like, you know, we've all heard Luna on this podcast a little. There's that rumble, and then there is like full on growls, and so. I thought it was one of those. I thought it was flowery language on Bree's part.
Yeah, I mean, I think initially I thought of it as like flowery.
He can't not close. He can close his mouth. Like you know what I mean? Like because like I don't care what kind of creature you are. If you have fangs,
it's not like
you don't have like
just
proper mouth structure. It's gonna like brush up against your tissue and your gums and all that, and that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah. They're just
it's probably just like the hint. They're
a little bit of time.
You know, a little sharper than usual.
Yeah,
because they do eventually grow into fang fangs,
longer,
but I think
a little long in the tooth right there.
I know that was the thing that called out to you. For me, it's like anytime characters interact and they both act physically and visibly, makes a touch. I'm always like.
Yes,
that's not just static shock, y'all. That is some actual real chemistry happening right there without y'all actually thinking about it. It's just physically manifesting without any thought behind it.
Yes, because also when Cell looked at her, she
and then
like
I love whenever we
feel something and looks away. So then I think that's around the time where he's like where he
but
grabs
it
her
also
and
this
like,
whole so because we're spoiler heavy, whatever.
Bro,
I just need y'all.
So
like,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Validate me that when she then meets Nick, you're like, this is cute or whatever, but nah.
Nothing. Nah. The most boring of boringest.
Honestly, this is gonna be funny because I'm gonna be
I read it late.
I did not feel that way. I mean, actually, no. Let me not say that. I felt that way. Wait, I felt that way in the beginning. I won't say I felt it. I won't say I didn't feel it. I definitely felt like,
no,
at
the beginning. But Nick has game, and so
I will say
he does. And it's
too,
fine.
I read it
later
than everyone, so I knew
I'm secure in that.
The love interest thing. But I was also like, I think I might have forgot, but I was like, it can't be two of them, and so it has to be the one who got electric shock and was talking to you crazy. It's got to be that one.
Nick just gave me like being courteous and
bestie. Camp counselor, yeah.
Well, in the beginning, he gives
he's just like a courteous
mentor.
He gives like
yeah.
No, at the beginning, I didn't feel it. I'm not gonna say I felt it immediately. I was like, okay, cool. It was later on as we get to know him. But Cell is definitely has, and I think also like because they spend most of this book at odds, like it makes the moments where they do interact like they have to be really intense, you know, so that they like can get to.
But top-notch character introduction. Good job.
Yeah, it's a great intro. He does the whole leaning back with his arms crossed.
He hits
like,
Bree
like
every
classic,
perfectly.
Classic moments.
Yeah. I also want to say that like one of the things that you're going to say, Robyn, was that like one, like these are two thoughts. One, that like Selwyn is very much like in the Robyn range of type. And how like 100%. That was like one of your first impressions possibly 100. Was that like, oh, this sounds a bit of me. Very much like a bit of me. And then the other thing I was thinking when I was thinking about this is like Selwyn's POV that we get later, not at this moment, but of like just generally why he is as reactive as he is. And I love that, like, him having, for him, this initial spark reaction, and it creates like questions in his brain and like doubt and suspicion. And I love that he's like, he just automatically, I'm going to be like, that's sus. I've never had a spark like that ever happened before. This, I have to watch this person. They must be up to nefarious things. Like, it just like automatically has to be sus in his brain.
Yeah.
I love that for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
thinks he has the right to grab her because he's like, I'm the cop here. I'm the one who can tell her.
Very, very that energy. I do wonder. There's that TikTok sounds. We're just gonna do TikTok sounds. The way that Cell is introduced, and I like in my brain was thinking, like, looking at Tracy, being like, look how she ate that, left no crumbs. Did you see how she ate that? And I do wonder now that you say Porshèa, and I guess I knew that it hit all of my notes in emotionally, but I don't think that I like intellectually was like, oh no, I feel this way because it's hitting all of my, it hits all my notes. I just thought, well, this is obvious. This is really obvious to everyone. This is like,
of course she's attracted to him. He's attracted.
She just wrote it. She wrote it out. Like, she just was like, and here's the love interest. Enter love interest. Continue. So it's funny because, like, yeah, it took me way longer than I think it took the rest of the people. Like, as we were all reading it, it took me way longer to be like, oh, I guess Nick is a viable option. I guess, but
yeah. Okay, so then here comes Cell violating Bree's space, you know, doing the most. But then there's like screams from the party. Selwyn runs off, so he's immediately like, well, something else is happening. I need to go do that. So he dips, and Bree goes looking for Alice because Bree took some time to herself, and Alice is still at the party, and so she like runs after, or like in the same direction that Cell goes in, but Cell is super fast, so he's like dipped. I think Bree falls at one point. She has to kind of reorient herself.
She does the classic horror movie thing you're not supposed to do. She like trips over some like roots in the forest floor.
Literally.
Right. And by herself as a black girl, like around these white folks, like I just so many wrongs.
She's struggling, and you know, sometimes you just gotta, like we said, give grace, even though, what are you doing, ma'am? But yeah, but Sal's gone. He's disappeared. So Bree finally gets to the party. Most like people are running and stuff, but it's not like anything. I mean, it's still crazy, but like there's a fight that's happening, and so a bunch of folks are leaving because they don't want to get caught. They're all at this quarry illegally. These 4 like football players are fighting each other. It's time to go, you know. But Bree, so there's this this girl who's like trying to get all these folks to dip, is like, y'all, it's time to go. Let's wrap it up. And then Bree is like still looking for Alice. Then she notices this thing hovering above the guys who are fighting. And we find out later that it's called an easel. But Bree at this point is ostensibly the only person who can see it. She like mentions it to some dude who's next to her, and he's like,
but at this point Bree can barely see it. She just sees like the air shimmering.
It's like flickering. Yeah, the air shimmering. It's doing something weird. It's kind of also sparking a memory from back in the prologue where she saw something similar but didn't process it because she was dealing with like the immediacy of her mom's death. And so in this case, it's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like she has some distance from that, and it's a different kind of chaos happening right now. And so she's kind of just like, what the hell is that? And then on top of that, like, confirming that she's the only person who can see it. But then she sees Selwyn across the way, and he can clearly see it. So something's up, you know? Something's going on. But before she can ask questions, figure it out, do anything, Sel looks at her. She gets this, like, thought in her head that she needs to leave. Like that other clip. You need to leave. And so that's what she does at the end of the chapter. She turns and walks away from the situation, having forgotten about the thing that's shimmering. She's kind of it's a compulsion thing. But yeah.
I feel like this scene, Louise said, she just hit every single cliche, and then maybe that's why I was never mad at Alice, because I was like, nah, man.
When Alice is around, like, she's not doing the dumb thing. So as Alice leaves, she's contemplating doing it. She's contemplating it. Like,
and I think for me, I was more like, okay, Bree is feeling a lot of things. When it's not like she ran to the drama just to run to the drama. She ran because she was looking for her friend. And then she got compelled to leave. She was on her way. I mean, we'll see what happens in the next.
But she's also not like she's the dangers are right in front of her face instead of being like, oop, that's not got nothing to do with me.
But also she should have known her friend.
Like, right. No,
she should have known her friend.
Like, she's definitely like, ooh,
also
what is
a person
that?
of color was going in the opposite direction. So if I heard this over here and I'm looking for Alice, my best friend, I need to go in the opposite direction.
I'm looking the opposite
because
direction.
Alice already wanted to go home. Alice was already trying to be in the car.
Alice was in the car.
So she was definitely like, I will catch you at the car.
Yeah.
But also, my friends, this is why no matter where you go, even if you say you're going to stick close together with your friends, you have a designated meeting spot. They are young and they are dumb.
The buddy system is only effective if you adhere to it.
But always know before...
And you use your phone because Bree definitely has her phone.
Right. And is not looking at it.
But
so she just was...
Did she try to call Alice?
Failing.
I don't think so.
She's over here getting mesmerized by fighting football players.
But
and
before that, I don't think that she called.
No.
So that's also okay. You know what?
The girl literally says someone called the cops. So call didn't make your brain go, oh, let me call
Alice. I mean, to be fair, and I think she should have called her, but in the chaos, would Alice have picked up her phone?
Pre-designated meeting spot.
She still should have tried. This is not an excuse.
Bree is over here yelling Alice's name instead of picking up, just texting. Because that would, honestly, introvert. I am an introvert.
Ayo, meet me at the car.
My first thing would be like, hey, where you at? Where are you?
There's also like, if I'm an introvert,
where are you?
And my phone rings back to back to back, I'm answering the phone. Something's going on. And if something's going on, and I can't find my friend and my phone rings, I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna answer it. Yeah. Failures all around. Yeah. But also, I guess, did Alice call her?
That was a drop ball.
That's what I'm saying. We don't know because she's dodging her dad's phone calls.
Right. She wasn't.
So she's like she's not looking at her phone purposefully because she doesn't want to be feeling guilty about her not reacting to it. But you're missing out on you're finding your friend because you're trying to dodge guilt. There's nothing keeping her from just swiping past her dad's messages and going straight to calling Alice. Like, I don't...
Very true.
I do not get it.
These are all good points. Yeah.
I'm not trying to go in on Bree. I'm literally just, like, the logic. I mean, I know she's not trying to be rational in this moment, but I, again, as an introvert...
Points are points, you know? And they're being made.
So we got to the point where Bree is leaving. No?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Bree leaves under the command of Sel, literally just saying to her and to the remaining people in the area that they need to get out of there. And so the compulsion is really just they have to get up out of there. And when we get to chapter 3, that's happening. And this dude named Dustin is a part of the people who are caught in this crowd around these kids. And as she's like, her compulsion is so bad that she's just like tripping on another branch again, lurching to the side, catching herself against like tree trunks, just trying to get moving. And she's so like discombobulated that like Dustin is ahead of her. She doesn't see Dustin anymore. He scoots away from her.
She's tripped on every single branch.
Yeah.
And eventually it knocks her back into like consciousness, but
right.
It is kind of funny.
And it's like kind of hilarious that is like part of that, right? And so when she gets a moment to like kind of like when she gains a bit more of her consciousness back, right? She's like, oh, hold on, crap, wait, did I just get compelled to go walking because of the Cell character? And then she's like, he gave us false memories, but then now I actually remember what actually happened, which is hilarious. Like, it's hilarious that like she's just having, I guess she's like, wait now a minute, hold on, let me get it. Did he just do that? Which I love that she's like, I think this is a moment that probably is actually allowing her to fully grasp the level of magic she's been seeing for these past couple of like the prologue into now. Is like, if this guy can compel me and other people to wander off in the forest, then perhaps these random flickers that I'm seeing are related to like this like whatever this energy is. Like, and I don't know if she's fully fully got behind like the concept of magic, but it's like something, something is happening.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, this was a very clear
it's not like
display,
she's
and I was able to break it somehow.
It's not like she's connecting the dots, but she's starting to see dots that
just
could
like
be connected. Like, that's where we're at in this.
Yeah.
And is also in this chapter, but I'm just taking a minute. It's really interesting that like as she's pulling these dots together, she's also noticing that like I'll talk about it, but like during the confrontation that Cell has with the Easel, like before they start really like having this full-blown conversation, she notices that like the woods are just like completely quiet, which is because of Cell. Like the creatures in the woods are like as scared of Cell as she's starting to kind of like come around to like with her like questioning about like who he is and what he's able to make happen based on the conversation she overhears between him and the Easel, which I think is really funny that she's like starting to like pick up on that as well, along with all these other like dots that she's seeing. But what I'm really here for in this moment is to get our first hit at Tor, because F her and everything she stands for, F her crew, F the side she resides on.
Her set, label, and crew.
Right.
Nah, but y'all remember in Amari how we felt about Lara since she was 12.
Tor don't like Lara don't even touch. Lara aspires to be Tor. Yeah. That's who Lara is trying to be.
Lara walked so Tor could
stomp. Could stomp all over everybody. Just stomp around.
So she could Naruto run. Like,
no, she wouldn't do that. She's too racist.
Yup. No, she might be racist enough to be a weebo, but also be racist, because you know how they are.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, she's horrible.
Ooh, she's the worst. And so, but what's the dumb about it? Like, what's, I guess, normal about it? You know what I mean? Because racists don't just like fly racist flags. They do, but at the same time, you know what I mean? Like, you don't necessarily always know that about them when you're first meeting them. So Tracy is nice enough to give us like, oh, the blonde girl who seemed like she was like trying to corral people earlier is now, like, she realizes his name is Tor because of how Cell yells at her. It's like, oh, I have a date with someone at the at Tapril, and Cell is like, oh, that's fine. We just gotta get this taken care of first. It's okay if you're late. And then so they're having this very completely normal conversation about this, like what they're about to do with like this creature.
And I think that's like, it's like it comes up. It happens like the whole time, like throughout the book. But like these are also just regular kids, you know, like. So it's an interesting thing to like see them, you know, it's a contemporary fantasy, so like they are fighting these monsters and doing these things, and they're like descended, and they have the lines of all these Knights of the Round Table or whatever, but also they're like, I was about to go meet her at the we was about to go eat dinner, but I guess now we're doing this. Like that part of it just makes it all feel so normal, and like it could legit be happening right now.
Yeah. Which is, again, fine, sure. Perhaps, you know what I'm saying, she has normal desires as well as her racism, and complete bigotry and, like, evil,
horribleness,
like, just core that she is. But it's interesting because as she and Cell and are in one breath talking about her grabbing drinks with someone, are in the next breath talking about going on a hunt within the same earshot of the same people they're trying to get to corral away from this space. And so Bree, naturally curious and having like gotten herself out of the compulsion, is like initially like, oh, maybe I should leave, like Cell said I should, and then here's Hunt is like, wait a minute now,
what's this about?
That sounds interesting.
She's so nosy, and I hate it for me. Like, it could never be me, but
yeah,
but I love it for her.
I mean, I am nosy and I am curious, but I'm like, I will like whatever I can catch along the way is what I'm gonna do. Like, I just so happen to be walking in that direction. Then
on the way out,
she said, "What? Interesting."
On the way out,
yeah, like. I
talk about it from a safe distance.
Like,
so I heard as I was turning left away from the monsters, I heard this thing about a hunt. Did y'all hear anything while you were running
like,
away?
Maybe I will pull out my phone in that moment and just like have my phone on as I'm walking away. Like, oh, okay, let me listen to this later whenever I have time to just sit and hear some things. Like, I'm not gonna
from a safe distance.
Right. Time will have passed. I will be safe. That's when I'm gonna be nosy. I can be nosy from my window. You know what I mean? I can't be nosy right up in the action. Oh no, because then I don't want to be a freaking collateral damage because of someone else's catastrophe. No. Let me just be at a safe distance. And Bree does not have that. Bree is like, I heard the word hunt. I'm already questioning what I've been seeing. Why don't I just follow along? And it's funny how she says that, like, any choice I had evaporates when silver smoke appears from nowhere. No, you still have a choice. Like, you still could have walked away when...
You still ain't found your best friend.
You still could have walked away.
And the cops are still on the way. The cops are still on the way.
Like, you still could have left the situation. But the choice, you then decided to make the choice to stay because the silver smoke was intriguing enough to you that she wanted to be there to see what happened next. That's what the choice was made. It wasn't that the choices were turned away. No. You have to own that you made the choice to put nosiness over safety. Let's just get there.
You know, it's the thing about these protagonists, boy. They gotta know. They none of them ever think, you know what? Maybe not. But then, would they be our protagonists?
I would love. I have read a couple of protagonists that do exactly like they're like, yo, that ain't me. But then they get into like that somehow does end up being about them, and I'm like, that's, you know, I can empathize with that. Like, you try not to get into it, but then you got pulled into it, like, you know.
Or they have someone, like, if it was like Cell was pulling her back, like, I'm trying to get out of here, and then the compulsion keeps bringing me back, type of thing. I've seen those as well, where it's like the other or the secondary protagonist or the sidekick or whatever, like, will not let them leave, and they're like, I just really don't want, this does not have anything to do with me, why do you keep showing up? Fine. But
the main character.
This level of recklessness.
Yeah. The protagonists that I enjoy the most, like the adventure-seeking protagonists I enjoy the most, are the ones who like own up to being like messy. Like if Bree were like, and so as soon as I saw that smoke, I was like, okay, so now what's up? I decided to hunker down and get my binoculars, like turn on the phone effects where I could zoom in and see what the like, you know what I mean? Own it. Like just own that you're messy, that you're like nosy, that you just want to be there. Just own it, Bree. And she kind of gets there later, but it's kind of funny that in this moment she's like, I had no choice. The smoke came, and I was like, of course I gotta know what happened to the smoke. Like, it's just funny to me. So there's this hunt. Tor and Cell are talking about going on this hunt. Cell, the smoke is Cell basically like changing his appearance. And he is more terrifying and more beautiful than before. And then that same silver smoke materializes and surrounds the boys, who don't blink because they can't see it. But Bree, Cell, and Tor can. And so when she sees Tor, she finally realizes that Tor is holding an object that she turns into a full bow and then pulls out arrows to go along with it. And then the boys at that point, they're like not fighting anymore, but now they're like concerned about what Tor is doing. And then when she pulls it out, she actually like shoots the easel in the wing due to Cell's command, where he's like, that makes it easier for me.
I love how like
as
imagine just like you're sitting here, you know, they at least know Tor. I think they know Cell too, but like they just see her pull out a bow and arrow, and you're like, where are we? And then she shoots into the air, and you're just like, because you can't see what she's shooting, so you're just like, what's happening here?
Also, out of nowhere, like where did that even come from? Like you just, and then who told you how to assemble a bow out of nothing? Like how did that happen?
So many questions.
What is the backstory to this? Like, how did this become are we all supposed to know combat training at this school? What's happening? Is this what I need to look forward to? Like, like, honestly. I probably would have been like, is this an elective that I need to know? Is archery on the thing? I need to figure that out.
Also, the way that Tor is kind of described, it gives, like, mean girl kind of, like spoiled girl vibes, too. Like, yeah, she's, like, in shape and stuff, but it, like, to me, you would be thinking, like, oh, she goes to the gym and she does Pilates and, you know, Soul Cycle, and all of a sudden she's like, no, I'm on my Katniss. But the thing that I also love is that, like, the boys still, like, I guess in their mind they know that they're fighting about something, even though they don't know that they're actually kind of being compelled to, like, fight, or they're being more aggressive because of the magic. Mm-hmm. But in their brain, they're like, dude, we were just about to tussle over baseball, whatever. I don't remember what they were yelling about. You know what I mean? But it's like, yo, it's one of those moments, too, where they're just really like, well, it really wasn't that deep. Like, we could just, we could just go. We could just stop. All right, your team is better, or whatever. You know. It's just really... Yeah, now we're pulling out weapons. Like,
I feel like, for the boys, it was like, hold on now. Like, I know we were fighting, but I didn't know we needed to get a bow. Like, I didn't know an arrow needs to be, like, we're, like, that's kind of lethal.
Exactly.
Like, I'm fine with walking away. Like, that's totally fine with me.
This went from 0 to 100 real quick.
Where was that?
I mean, it was literally, it was basically like 70 into
well, yeah.
It was like, oh, we just took a turn. I wasn't expecting.
Right. Like, I was like, you know, right. So, we go from, that is from Tor, like, she's getting the arrow ready, aiming at the creature's wing that, again, only Cell, Bree, and Tor can see. So these boys are, like, not at all, like, they're saying wing, they're saying all these things that they're like, what in the world? And 3 things happen in quick succession. 1, Tor's arrow flies. 2, Cell swings towards the boys and spreads his arms wide while murmuring words that Bree cannot hear. Then 3, the boys stand up, march around the campfire in a line, and then walk in Bree's direction.
Time to go.
You would think, but no.
It's been time to go. Time to go.
You would think that upon the perhaps I will be discovered here lurking. Maybe I should get my butt moving. No, because Bree's still there and says, or is looking, observing that Tor's arrow has pierced the mass. She sees the wings in the smoke from the campfire. She sees claws, and then there's a thud and writhing on the ground, where the creature is now scattering leaves and dirt with the arrow sticking up out of its wing. Whatever it is, it's not much bigger than a possum, but it is as angry as a possum, which makes Bree shudder, which would make me shudder, because possums are vile. Yeah. Vile. And the fact that her scale of reasoning for what this creature wasn't like some other like woodland foresty creature. No, it's an ugly, disgusting possum from like, like you could tell that's her rural country like coming out in her when she's like possum. That's what that thing is like giving me in size. And at this point, she's observing all this. By this point, the football players have reached where she is. She has to duck out of sight when they pass by her. And then when she notices their expressions, they all have slack mouths and unfocused eyes. They move as if they're drugged. And then she wonders if that's how she looked as she was like just wandering about. But she doesn't think about it that too long, because then she hears a screech from the direction where it's Cell and Tor are. And then she hears the easel saying Merlin. And then Bree's like, what? Bree, like Merlin as in King Arthur? And then Cell goes towards the creature, and 5 needle-thin points of light appear at the fingertips of his extended hand. Like, what is going on? And then when he snaps his wrist, the light spears fly into the ground, and the creature screams. He has pinned it in place like a butterfly to a board, and then he chuckles in a way that makes her shiver. And he says, not just any Merlin. The creature hisses again in a pained rage and shouts, a king's mage. A feral grin crosses Cell's face. That's better. Which, okay, again, talking about the anime of it all, because he does a feral grin, and the first reaction Bree has is that her heart skips.
She knows what she likes. Also.
I'm saying. I'm not saying. But I'm saying.
She's just hearing all of this stuff. And she's like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. They're using so much like. They're using all this.
She's like Merlin as a night table.
King Arthur jargon. And she's just like, what are we watching the Sword in the Stone? Like, what's going on here? And she still hasn't left. You know?
She hasn't left because she's attracted to this man and his feral grin as he shoots light beams, pinning down a creature that looks like a possum to the ground. I feel like
you like what you like.
I feel like we're the older cousins, like reacting to Bree telling us the story after it happened. Like after the fact, we're like, Bree, girl, what?
But also,
stop. Oh, you
get his digit.
Are you gonna follow up?
You gonna follow up?
The last time he thought that he saw you, he was making you wander away into the woods, and little does he know. What is she? Okay. So, her heart skips. Mage, as in magic. And Tor, the scallywag that she is, says, it's just a small one with a pout. And then has another, while saying it's a small one, puts another arrow in her freaking, why do you need another arrow? You said it was small. Like, is it necessary? Overkill, because you're a freaking scallywag. Like, that's who Tor is. Okay.
Scallywag.
My MVP is Porshèa using the word scallywag twice in this episode. It was not on my bingo card. Not at all. Scallywag.
It doesn't matter how small it is, says Cell. It shouldn't be here. The thing struggles against the restraints and makes a flapping sound. Cell clucks his tongue. Why are you here, little Easel? He says, oh yeah, with a derivative sneer. Nosy Legendborn, the Easel says. Nosy trick. And then Cell stomps down on its wing hard, and the creature screeches. Enough about us. Why are you here? And then the Easel answers that it's feeding. So apparently it made a spark of aggression on those 4 football players, and then he blew on it until it became a feast. So it gorged itself on the aggression that the football players were having as they fought each other.
It's like the boogeyman from Mari, except they feed on fear.
I feel like there's another character, like another creature that does this.
Yeah, same. I was like, there's another one too.
I have to think about it,
but I don't know. Definitely the boogeyman.
Maybe I feel like I'm just thinking about maybe like witches or who have been into like creating chaos around them, and they just like spark it off.
In Mercy Thompson, witches feed off of pain. Black witches. White witches do not use pain to power their magic, but their magic is much less powerful. And gray witches hurt themselves and not innocent.
And incubi, they feed off of energy too.
Incubi and succubi, I think, feed off of like, well, it depends on the lore, but it usually, from what I understand, like sexual energy,
but there's like
and chi.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on how the lore is written for them.
Depends on the, yeah.
But again, this is a creature, so it's interesting because it's like a possum resembling creature. Again, we don't know if it resembles a possum. It's the same size of a possum, but for her to say that, I feel like it might look a little similar for her to like have that knee jerk possum.
Like specific. Yeah.
So it was so intent on gorging itself that it didn't see Tor or Cell right beneath them, but it's far away from campus and it's barely corporal, which means means it's barely like physically available. Surely it would be easier to to feed closer to your gate, which again, what is a gate? We're just not hearing this gate thing. And apparently it's near campus, so that's where they expect to see these creatures.
You know what? If I was Bree, things would be clicking.
I'm like, I gotta get away from this school.
Me to come here. My mom did not want me to come here. Sounded like there's some reason.
Yeah. My mama was right.
Did she know
All
about
right.
this?
Let's look into some transfer papers.
I'm like, yo, like it's bad enough.
Early college may not be.
It's bad enough to run into a rodent. Like in a place that you're like a spot that you're not really trying to. You never want to see a rodent. But you're telling me that they'd expect to see magical possum-like creatures near campus? That's a no for me.
I don't know.
I've seen what I needed to see, and I'm good. I actually can go. A grating rhythmic sound comes from the ground where the easel lies. It takes a moment for Bree to recognize the sound as laughter. And Cell hears it and then makes his lip curl back, which is just funny imagery in my mind for Cell. He then asks if something is funny, and then Easel says there's something very funny. Spit it out, we don't have all night, or should I say that you don't have all night? You're going to die here, or did you miss that too? And then it rasps, not my gate. And then Cell's like, what do you mean not your gate? And the creature laughs again, which makes it sound super wrong. And Cell questionably looks at Tor. Tor shakes her head and shrugs. He doesn't know what it means. And it just keeps repeating, not my gate, not my gate. So then Cell clenches his hand into a tight fist, and the glowing pins and the creature's wings draw together. There's a quick flash of light and then a bone-shaking scream, and the creature's flickering shape explodes into green dust. Bree is still sitting there, feet glued to the earth.
She has not left.
Mind you, she's crouched down, so this like...
Where I would have been like, you know what? But, you know what? Also... If you're already there, if you've made it this far,
you may as well wait till they walk away, because
you might as well see it
right.
through.
But you don't want to get caught because you wanted to get up real quick. You know what I mean? And she's already crouched down, so they probably don't see her. Like, they probably are not in, like, she's not in danger of them catching her through periphery because she's crouched down. But also, those knees, those young knees, and them squats, like, I love that for her. That she was able to squat down this long after football players came by. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love it for her. Her feet are glued to the earth. They're going to find me because I'm too terrified to run. She's thinking this, and Tor says there could be more as she pulls her bow to rest, and Cell like kind of looks at her in thought, but is silent. And she huffs at him, "Are we hunting or not?" And he turns to face the woods opposite from where Bree is, and he says, "We're hunting." He then mutters a word that Bree doesn't understand, and the silver smoke from before returns, swirling around the campfire so the flames die, sending the clearing into darkness. So now Bree's out there, can't see. No visuals. In these dark woods.
Not no visuals. No visuals.
Not no visuals.
Look, Beyonce told you.
Beyonce got y'all in a chokehold. Not no visuals on Legendborn.
No visuals.
No visuals.
And then he does the classic Shang from Mulan line, "Move out." And I mean, I can't. Like, I just, okay, Shang. Anyways, Bree holds her breath, but then Tor and Cell do not actually turn her away. Instead, they step into the section of the woods where he'd been scrutinizing. She waits until she hears their voices recede, and then after she finally gets her limbs under control, she takes a silent beat or two before the crickets start singing again, which again, they had stopped because they were afraid of Cell.
Everybody's afraid of Cell.
Everybody. And then from a limb overhead, a bird releases a quiet, uncertain chirp. It's dark. Like, what are y'all doing? Why is there a bird there? And then she finally excels, and then she's like, the Issa was an impossible monster that somehow fed off humans, but that Selwyn is something else. Something worse. Every living thing in the forest had hidden itself from him, and she stands there alone for one more beat, still frozen, before she begins to run. She runs as fast as she can through the shadows and does not turn back. And I'm like,
now you want to run.
Where was that energy?
She was curious. She wanted to know.
Nah, but she should have been turning and running when she knew Alice's ass was waiting for her for 20. I've been falling for 30 minutes. Like, come on now.
Definitely forgot about that.
That's how you know her phone is on silent. It's not even vibrating in her pocket or something. You know what I mean? Like, if she out that far where she doesn't have any reception, like, what is the problem? Because I just don't get it.
Yeah. So who's your MVP?
Alice, because she has some dang sense.
Yeah, Alice.
Alice, that's hilarious. Mine is Bree. After all of this, it's still Bree, but y'all make a lot of good points. Like, as we were talking about it, I'm like, nah, she's kind of tripping. But I just really love Bree, and so it's mostly because I love her, and I want her to be okay.
It's spoiler heavy, so this is definitely you giving her the benefit of the doubt, because what she showed up with at least in chapter 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's partially spoiler heavy, but also I do think that, I feel like of everyone, we see her the most, so it was easier to make.
I'm always gonna be on the side of some sense, and Alice had the most sense.
100%. Alice, I understand why y'all did that.
So I did it too because so we're doing from the prologue to chapter 2, and in the prologue we also know that Alice told her parents the whole way through. She has knows, and then we hear about how Alice knows exactly who she what she wants to be. She wants to be a lawyer. She's got she seems like the good. She seems like the best friend who has her head on her shoulders and is going to help you or help Bree get to where Bree says that she wants to go and keep her from being distracted and keep her kind of grounded, but also she's a good influence is what I get from the prologue to chapter 2 is Alice being a good influence on Bree. And to be honest, like, after the prologue, I kind of had Bree as MVP because I think that, like, you know, grief and, but she's still doing what she got to do. And then the first chapter, you tripped a little bit, but that meet ugly cute was cute. And, you know,
I feel like she's doing what she can, and she's putting herself out there as much as she can. Maybe more than she should, but
more than she should. I feel like sometimes you don't need to put yourself out there that much.
She's not even doing it because she needs to. She's doing it because she feels this innate, like, feeling that, like, I should put myself through things to either wake my is it she, I don't know that she's trying to, there's a numbness that she feels. I feel like it's like a lingering just like need to do something that's not what she would regularly do. Like she just needs to not
I feel like it's for distraction.
Yeah, definitely for distraction.
Yeah, she's looking for distraction, not like she's trying to like cure her numbness or whatever. She's just looking to be distracted from her pain. But like, I don't know, I just always feel like the minute in chapter 1 where she starts thinking about if she should jump off that quarry and off that cliff, from there on it starts to go downhill. When she walks away.
No, I think walking away.
I understand that Evan was
she
tripping.
Didn't really walk away. She more just was like, they left her there. She was just like, I need a minute. And I feel like that's fair. If you need a minute, you need a minute. You need a minute, especially coming off after the conversation she had.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, with like don't be around a homeboy. But then I mean, like, but Alice was going to stay with her and let, like, you know, just catch up with him later. And she was like, no, you can go too.
But also, I still like, as somebody who sometimes needs to not be talking to people, like it be that way sometimes.
Yeah.
But she definitely should have called Alice.
But I just
instead of at least in a text something.
I don't know. Doesn't seem like they had a plan, but it also doesn't seem like they do this often.
I mean, it is their first time probably out of the, because they said that her parents are both of their parents are overprotective.
Both of their parents are overprotective.
They never really had a chance, so they just need to learn to build out the system.
Sometimes you gotta be benched before you can start and become an MVP.
That's
okay,
fair. You gotta crawl before you can walk.
Very
you know?
fair. That's very fair.
Yep. You gotta learn. Sometimes you don't know that you need to have a designated meeting spot until you don't have a designated meeting spot.
That's usually how most people figure it out.
She got distracted.
Trial and error.
She got distracted. If they would have had a designated meeting spot, she wouldn't have been able to get distracted because she would have been on the way.
But as you were saying that, I feel like that honestly describes her so well. Of like, she really is like looking to be distracted. Let's say, so the magic, she's like, oh, I'm gonna be distracted. Like whenever she was going through it, and she slightly noticed the police officer during the prologue, she wasn't trying to be distracted in that moment. She was just living through the trauma of that moment. But now that she's seeking distraction, she's just like lingering on anything that could be slightly distracting.
But also, shout out to her for not getting caught.
Right.
You know?
I mean, but how much of that was her just lucking out?
She lucked out mostly. But
and it leads also to my bench is that like Tor wasn't fully doing her job because Tor was really trying to make sure everybody was safe. Then Bree still wouldn't be there. Like she would have actually like looked around the perimeter and gotten everyone out. Like if she was doing her real job as a huntress, but she wasn't doing that.
I feel like that partially Cell too. But I'm never gonna like Tor has been forever.
We saw her off early with this one. She can take that.
I benched Evan because what the fuck, bro? Why?
But also Charlotte, that's your man, Charlotte? That's your man?
Right.
Yeah, no, that was bad. It was so bad.
It was so bad. So bad. That was literally like socialization 101. What are we doing here? I benched Bree and Cell. So starts with chapter 1. I love a good meet cute and ugly. I love an ugly meet cute and all of that was great. But then he started grabbing her and demanding stuff, and that was too much.
I love him. Lovingly benched.
Yes,
lovingly.
For him, he needs to learn
sometimes you gotta be benched before you. You got to be benched before you can start and become an MVP. You know what I mean? You got to get there. You got to work your way up. But he definitely And I think this is also like a great intro to Cell because it is like points were made, but then you did too much. Like I feel like if you could like explain Cell's characterization, it's like he be making points and it's Porshèa. He ain't wrong.
He ain't right. Literally, I was like, I don't see it.
He ain't wrong.
I feel like he ain't right. Wrong, though,
so
I don't think
like he's wrong to touch her. You don't know her. Don't touch her.
And he spends a lot of this book being wrong. That's not necessarily his fault. I'm not saying that's his fault, but he spends a lot of this book being wrong.
I know, because partially it is, because partially he's trying to make a thing, and it's like, just
stop trying to make
if you would just take the actual reasoning behind the thing and stop trying to make it be something else, then perhaps no one would be as tough as they are at you for what you done did. Like, maybe you wouldn't do those things, and we'd all be okay.
Yeah.
This is true. But in this,
you binged him anyway.
Yeah. Sorry, no, I didn't know if you could hear that big ass truck. But in this portion of the story, he ain't gotta be touching on Bree like that. And I also think that the way he came at Bree set in her mind that she was going to be contrary to whatever he said. Like, had they not had that encounter when she was compelled to go, she wouldn't have fought so hard against it. Because it's like, a lot of it, I feel like in chapter 2 is like, I'm definitely not going to be told what to do by this dude.
Yeah,
like,
I love when she says she owns. So this is what my thing when I said about protagonists who own their stuff. She owns that she's a stubborn person, and she reacts to stubborn people stubbornly because they are also being stubborn to her. And I'm like, oh, that's legit. At least she owns that. Like, if you say something, like, I will do something contrary, just because you said something to me. I will act contrary to that because I am stubborn and I refuse to let you have the final word. And I love that she owned that. So that really came out in her dynamic with Cell.
Yeah, definitely.
But the way that she went about being contrary made her bench and made him bench. So they're both benched. Yeah. But they are benched together holding hands.
I mean, they're not there yet because he's over here grabbing people.
Sparkling. Well, listen. Holding hands and getting shocked. They're benched and there's crackling
in between them
on the bench. The bench is crackling. There's electricity on that bench. I love that for me.
Well, thank y'all for listening. On that note, join us next week. We'll be discussing chapters 3 through 5.
Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com and follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create. Thanks.